There is a sound that can break a human mind. It isn't a scream. It isn't a siren. It is a frequency, a digital weapon designed to rewrite your reality. August 1979, Kirtland Air Force Base. Behind these fences lies the largest stockpile of nuclear weapons on Earth. And watching it all, from a bedroom window just across the ridge, was Paul Bennewitz. He was a physicist, a patriot. He thought he had discovered an alien invasion. He was wrong. He hadn't found the truth. He had found a trap. And the United States government was about to close it on him. Welcome to the Mirage. Albuquerque, New Mexico. They call it the atomic capital. The desert here is a vacuum. It swallows sound. It swallows light. Living directly adjacent to the Kirtland nuclear bunkers in the affluent Four Hills neighborhood was Paul Bennewitz. He wasn't a drifter. He was the president of Thunder Scientific. He built calibration equipment for the U.S. military. He held high-level clearance. He understood the physics of the electromagnetic spectrum better than the pilots flying over his house. He was a man of logic, living on the edge of the unknown. In August of 1979, the unknown came to his window. Strange amber orbs hovering over the Manzano bunkers. They moved like insects. Sudden stops, impossible accelerations. Bennewitz didn't hide. He built a listening post. He constructed a massive array of antennas on his roof, pointing them like accusatory fingers directly at the nuclear storage facility. He wired them into a bank of receivers. He recorded every pulse, every burst of static. He was looking for a pattern in the noise. And then he caught it. A low-frequency signal pulsing out of the base. It wasn't random. It was structured. It repeated. He spent thousands of hours decoding the pulses. He projected his own fears into the data. Where there was noise, he saw binary. Where there was silence, he heard a voice. He convinced himself he had tapped into a communication link between an alien fleet and their underground command center. He compiled a dossier, Project Beta. He detailed the invasion. He believed he was the Paul Revere of the 20th century. But he made a catastrophic miscalculation. The signal wasn't coming from the stars. It was coming from the NSA. He was intercepting encrypted telemetry from secret military drones. When he reported his findings, he didn't trigger an alert. He triggered a containment protocol. The machine had seen him, and it was about to turn its gaze on him. October 1980. Bennewitz presents his evidence to the Air Force. He expects a court-martial. Instead, they offer him a seat at the table. Enter the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, the AFOSI. Their job wasn't to investigate the lights. Their job was to protect the secrets hiding behind the lights. They assigned Special Agent Richard Doty to the case, a counterintelligence specialist, a master of the human mind. He didn't tell Bennewitz to stop. He told him to keep going. This is where the weaponization began. They call it gaslighting. Doty confirmed Bennewitz's worst fears. Yes, Paul, we know about the signal. We are worried too. Doty brought in backup. William Moore, a famous UFO researcher. They formed a closed loop around Bennewitz. 2 men feeding him lies, 1 man swallowing them whole. Then came the paper trail. They forged official top-secret documents, the Aquarius executive briefing. They handed these to Bennewitz like holy scripture. The documents described a treaty, a deal between the U.S. government and a species known as the Greys. It was pure fiction, but to a man desperate for answers, Doty pointed to a map. Dulce, New Mexico. He told Bennewitz that the aliens had a base there, underground, 7 levels deep. He described vats of genetic experiments, nightmares growing in glass jars. He wasn't just lying. He was building a horror movie inside Bennewitz's head. Why? To keep him looking at the ground. So he would stop looking at the sky. They needed Bennewitz chasing ghosts so he wouldn't see the real classified projects. For 2 years, they fed him. Every week, a new lie, a new threat. Bennewitz stopped sleeping. He patrolled his house with a shotgun. He believed the aliens were monitoring him. He saw them in the shadows. But the only people watching him were the men he called his friends. The MIRAGE Men were successful. Bennewitz was no longer a security risk. He was a prisoner of his own belief system. But stories weren't enough. The human mind is resilient. To break him completely, they needed a machine. In 1982, they gave him the final piece of the puzzle. A computer program, a weapon made of code. The government had successfully manufactured a mythology. But to guarantee silence, they needed to turn their narrative into hardware. It was called Project Beta. The Air Force provided Bennewitz with a custom computer program. They told him it was the key to understanding the alien language. This was the most vicious trick of all. The software was a closed loop, a script. No matter what random static Bennewitz fed into the computer, the output was always the same. Imagine the reality. A brilliant man, sitting alone, conversing with a digital machine designed only to confirm his worst fears. Humans are food. Invasion imminent. The separation between reality and the screen dissolved. Bennewitz began to believe the messages were being transmitted directly into his home, into his mind. He abandoned his business. He abandoned his family. He spent 18 hours a day interacting with the machine. He was preparing for a war that only existed in his hard drive. He bought guns. He fortified his home. He became obsessed with photographing the aliens he believed were outside his window, when in reality, they were just military test drones. He was armed, dangerous, not to the government that was lying to him, but to his family who were trying to save him. He wrote frantic, long letters to the president, to senators, warning them that the Gray Treaty had failed, that the time for war was now. The government had achieved neutralization. They didn't just hide the truth, they constructed an entire deadly fantasy around him. The screen was his whole world, a pool of cold green light in the endless black. The machine had consumed the scientist. August 1988, the final consequence. Bennewitz, paranoid and armed, barricades himself inside his house. The AFOSI watches from a distance. The threat is contained. His family was forced to institutionalize him. He never fully recovered. The weapon of code had done its job. By 1989, Bennewitz was silenced. The threat he posed to national security had been contained not by a jail cell, but by an invisible prison of his own mind. Doctors diagnosed him with severe paranoia and schizophrenia. He died a decade later, never fully free from the commands of the machine. Doty and his colleagues celebrated. They hadn't just protected the stealth program, they had achieved a much larger, more dangerous goal. The story wasn't about Paul Bennewitz, it was about us. Every piece of false information they fed Bennewitz, the Greys, the Dulce Base, the treaties, he had broadcast to the public. The conspiracy community swallowed it whole. They didn't have the real code. They had Bennewitz's hallucination. The lie became the dominant truth. The ultimate purpose of the Project Beta mind game was to create a mythological barrier. If the public ever got close to the real secret, if they saw a classified black project, they would immediately dismiss it as just another Dulce-type conspiracy. The truth, the real military activity, was hidden in plain sight behind the elaborate, terrifying alien fantasy the government had engineered. The weapon was never the frequency. The weapon was belief. They successfully drove one man mad to ensure an entire population would never believe the truth. They didn't just win the war for information. They won the war against reality.